Welcome back to Sunday Vibes. This episode of Sunday Vibes is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer partner of the Premier League. A quick reminder that the Kings of the Premier League has returned to Sky Sports, and the panel will be using Sky's power rankings and Budweiser's King of the Match stats to debate each month's MVP. The latest episode features Eni Aluko and our good friend Harry Pinero going head-to-head. Very quickly, I'm joined by Patrick Van Straat and Doogie Critchley today. Chris Hamill still on holiday. So, lads, who are you picking as your king of the month for December, Dukes?
I'm going to go for Anwar El Ghazi. I think he took a fair amount of criticism last year after his transfer from Lille. He was one of a number of signings that Aston Villa made last year, but he's really come into his own with 5 goals this December. I think Dean Smith has said that he's really sort of established himself in the team after some inconsistent form. He's a very good penalty taker. He's stepped up at times when Grealish has gone off. And I think El Ghazi deserves a hell of a lot of credit for turning around what was turning into a sort of mediocre Premier League career, and now he looks established as one of Dean Smith's options on the right-hand side alongside Bertrand Traore. So credit to El Ghazi.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout. It was nice to see Tyrone Mings as well coming out in support of him, because he took a bit of heat, El Ghazi, off of some Aston Villa fans. Yeah. So I hope those people who are giving him stick are now eating their words. Patter, who are you going to go for?
I think I'm going to go for Lacazette. For Lacazette, it's been a real rehabilitation of his reputation, because he obviously was having a really difficult time at the beginning of the season, and now was the top scorer in the Premier League over Christmas. He's got 4 goals in his last 3 Premier League appearances.
Yeah.
And it's not just that, it's also that, he only has to press in certain areas now, whereas before it looked like he was getting a bit leggy, chasing all over the park. He's playing really, really well when he drops deep and links up play, for guys like Martinelli to run in behind. Obviously played the kind of defense splitting pass that led to that great goal for Bukayo Saka against West Brom. I just think that it now seems like Arsenal found a way to get the best out of him after only 4 years. So yeah, I don't know. I'm delighted for him just because he was like El Ghazi. He was getting so much stick, and I don't think it was deserved. And so I'm glad that he's now kind of come good, as it were.
All right then, I think that's a very good shout. I'll go for, obviously I want to say Bruno Fernandes, but it's a bit obvious, so I'll mix it up. I'll go Thomas Souček, who I think is becoming more and more instrumental to this West Ham side. Moisey has finally found Fellaini 2.0, which is really good to see. But maybe that's doing Souček a little bit of a disservice, because he's actually very, very competent with the ball at his feet as well. 4 goals in 7 games. Very impressive start to the season. Obviously got the winner against Everton as well in that 1-0 away victory. So yeah, I just think he's had an outstanding month. You can let us know who your King of the Month is in the comments below, and you can click the link in the description below to see if any of us called it correctly. Right then, let's crack on with Sunday Vibes, because we had so many transfer related questions, it's ridiculous. We had what relegation side should people be joining? We had what top 6 club need to make a signing? That sort of vibe. So we thought we'd do a bit of a January special, and today we're going to each bring one transfer we think realistically will happen, and one dream transfer that's a little bit out there that we would love to see happen. So, Doogster, who are you going to go as your realistic one, first and foremost?
My realistic one, I'd like to caveat before I start this by saying I'm doing a player that I'm bringing to Arsenal. I want to caveat by saying this, that I think Emile Smith-Rowe has been absolutely awesome since coming into the side permanently for that game against Chelsea. I think the way he takes the ball in tight spaces, the way he keeps it relatively simple, he sort of binds at Arsenal's attacking play, and I think it's led to 8 goals in their last 3 games, which is as many as they scored in their previous 13. And I think Smith-Rowe, despite only having, I think, a goal and assist to his name, has been an enormous part of that. So credit to Smith-Rowe. But I think if Arsenal want to move forward over the next few years, they do need that out-and-out creator. And the guy I would go for over Emi Buendia is Julian Brandt. Now,
this is spicy.
It is spicy. It is a little bit spicy, mainly because I think he'll be more affordable than Emi Buendia this January, and I also think it's the time to buy him. His stock has arguably never been lower, which seems like an odd thing to say when I'm suggesting him for a signing, but that's because he has slightly struggled this year. Only 6 starts, 7 appearances in the Bundesliga for Borussia Dortmund, and only 1 assist in that time. No goal contributions in the Champions League. But last year, I think it was over 10 goal contributions. For his previous 3 years at Bayer Leverkusen, it was close to 10 goal contributions. And he's a fantastic technician. He takes up great spaces on the pitch. He's great with either foot. He can shoot, he can assist, he's very comfortable on the right, which is crucial for Arsenal as well if they want to move on from the sort of disastrous signing of Willian relatively quickly to interchange with Nicola Pepe. He could play in that central role as well. And I think he's going through a difficult period, as are many Dortmund players this season. I think the introduction of Gio Reyna and the spectacular form of Gio Reyna has affected Sancho's form. It's affected Brandt's game time, and he's really struggled when he's been on the pitch. I mean, his shots per 90 have dropped to a career low 1.1. His XG is now put at 0.09, and he's had 6 shots from open play all season. And he's clearly behind Haaland, Sancho, Gio Reyna, and even Marco Reus in the pecking order now. And he can play a number of positions, but I think if you go back to his Bayer Leverkusen form, I mean, it was only 3 years ago that Liverpool were considering him as a signing and then eventually plumped for Mo Salah because Bayer Leverkusen wouldn't sell him. Like, he is a phenomenal player, and you shouldn't just take this season alone on that. And he's had 37 Bundesliga goals and 37 Bundesliga assists since his debut for Bayer Leverkusen in 2013. He's a regular in the German national setup as well. Just to go to sort of his peak, in 18-19, 18 Bundesliga goal involvements, ranked first for shot and goal creating actions in the league that entire season. And Dortmund have already said that they will accept an offer of £22.5 million for Brandt, which I think is an absolute steal based off what he's done in the last 3 or 4 years, less so on this year. And I think when they've got Torgan Hazard, they've obviously got Gio Reyna, they've got a number of players that can come in different attacking areas. I think Dortmund might be willing to do business this January, which might not be the case for Buendia. I think Norwich are going to, they're in the middle of a promotion push. They're going to be very keen to keep hold of Buendia. And I actually think Brandt is a far superior player to Buendia. And I think his record for the national team suggests that as well. And his record for Bayer Leverkusen over the last 3 or 4 years suggests that as well. And if Arsenal want to get to the stage where they are challenging for the title in 2 to 3 years' time, or even 3 to 4 years' time, Brandt at 24 could be a crucial part of that. So I think Julian Brandt, it's a transfer that Arsenal would be fine until the end of the season with Emile Smith-Rowe and maybe making some things happen in different areas up front as well. And maybe they'd be able to push for the Europa League. But Brandt, for a signing for January and going forward in the next 2 years, 2-3 years, would be able to push them forward to the Champions League and hopefully a title push in the next 3 or 4 years. So yeah, Brandt for me.
I think this is a really interesting shout because I saw you on Twitter, Duke, saying that, I think it's mad that Arsenal fans are potentially turning their nose up at Brandt, because I also saw Arsenal fans on social media a little bit sceptical about this move, not fans of it, and I'm putting that quite politely. So let's come to our resident Arsenal fan, Pato. What are you saying about Julian Brandt? Would you like him? Would you take him?
Yeah, I'd definitely take him, especially for that price. I mean, he hasn't had the greatest time in Dortmund, but he has been kind of playing in a midfield role a lot of the time. And Dukes is absolutely right. In that last campaign at Leverkusen, he was one of the best attackers in the league. Like 18 goal involvements in a 34-game season is really impressive for a young player. And when you think, he's 24, I think there probably is another level to go to. I think at Arsenal, he'd probably have a bit more freedom because he wouldn't be played in like a double pivot in a 3-4-3. And what he's got, crucially, I think, is that ability to play in different positions. I think with Martinelli on the left, with Saka, and with Emile Smith-Rowe, what you want is a player who doesn't necessarily bench one of those guys immediately forever. You want somebody who can play when Smith-Rowe is playing, or can play with Saka or with Martinelli. I think Arsenal have got to look for somebody who is able to come into that team but not just deny minutes to all their youngsters. And the great thing about Brandt is he can play on either wing, or he could play in that number 10 position. So you could imagine him playing with any combination of those young attackers and probably working. I don't know. I mean, he doesn't have the defensive work rate of someone like Buendia, but they're about the same age, and he's got a track record of exceptional production at the top level, which Buendia doesn't quite have. We can see the reasons to imagine that he would have it in a good side, but he hasn't actually done it, in a top flight yet. So I completely understand why Brandt would be kind of the safer move in that regard. But this, to me, is probably one of the better moves Arsenal could realistically make. You know, we saw David Ornstein this week saying Arsenal's dream idea is to go and get, you know, a world-class number 10 under whom Emile Smith-Rowe can be like an apprentice. And I just thought, who are the available top-quality number 10 types who Arsenal could get? Because I don't even know who that is. Like, I genuinely don't know who Arsenal could get. Like, Nkunku and Pellegrini would be the only feasibly gettable ones. And even there, I'm being very generous to Arsenal in assuming they could get those players. So I think that Brandt would be a really sensible move. A good age, a reasonable price. It just seems like everything could kind of come together on that one.
Yeah, and also, like, the fit for that number 10 that's world-class can't be a luxury number 10 either, which are the number 10s that are available on the market. Like, the number 10s of potentially, like, 2012, like, to 2015, where didn't get through as much work rate off the ball, but were exceptional creators, maybe a Mesut Ozil or Christian Eriksen. Like, those kind of players are potentially available on the market, but Arsenal aren't looking for that kind of player either. So I totally agree. I think Julian Brandt will be a really fun move. Pato, what's your realistic transfer?
Well, mine is Diego Costa to Wolves.
Oh,
which obviously has a fraught history. This particular transfer, but he's a free agent at the moment. Cancelled his contract with Atletico Madrid, and Wolves are definitely in need of some presence up front, and I don't think I'd personally do this if I were Wolves. I just could see it happening. You know, Diego Costa has had a pretty bad time since going back to Atletico Madrid. I think he's got 19 goals in 81 appearances in that time, which is actually better than I thought it would be, because there was a stage where he was kind of taking one shot a game. In La Liga, and his XG numbers had absolutely plummeted, and he wasn't even causing problems for centre-backs the way that he used to. But I think that the situation at Wolves is suitably dire that they might consider maybe giving him a 6-month deal and then he'd look again in the summer, if he'd be willing to accept that, and I think he might be. I'm not sure. I think it'd be a good move for him, and it's just something I could see Nuno doing for whatever reason. Like, when Raul Jimenez is not scoring, and actually he doesn't score that much, he doesn't score as much as people think, his ability to win possession and get Wolves up the pitch is so important. Like, we were talking about this the other day, Joe, you know, the fact that Wolves are getting pinned back and their defence is getting in real trouble because they just are simply not able to move up the field without dribbling. And so Costa would help with that to some degree. And I could also imagine, even if he wasn't scoring himself, I could imagine him being able to get better production out of Podence and Neto in the way that when he was at Chelsea, he got good production out of Eden Hazard. Those were the best creative numbers of his career. So, I don't know. Wolves have scored 18 times all season in the absence of Raul Jimenez.
So low, isn't
it? It's level with Newcastle. And Newcastle are a god-awful attacking side. I mean, the top scorer at Wolves, it's level between Jimenez and Pedro Neto on 4. This is really, really troubling. And I'm not sure that Costa, like I've said, comes in and like bangs goals to remedy that. But I do think that he gives Wolves an advantage in territory, and he might be able to bring those wingers into the game. And if he can do that, that will see the attack improve, even if he himself isn't netting the goals. So, I don't know. It just seems like this is no money. It's a kind of good coronavirus move. Like, you've got absolutely no cash. It's kind of no risk. I think that it would make a lot of sense.
There's almost.
I think it depends what wage he comes in on though, because
sure.
At Atletico Madrid have been earning quite a lot, and obviously like they've signed Luis Suarez now, who is he top scorer in La Liga, just fully mugging Barcelona off with that one. So you can see kind of why they cancelled the contract. I'm not sure this would be the smartest move for Wolves though, personally. I think Jimenez is back in light training already. I can see Diego Costa sort of sitting on the bench for 3 months of the season, earning a serious amount of money if he was to arrive at Wolves.
Yeah, he's only. I mean, if it's only for 6 months on the terms that Pat said, I mean, I think he's done at the top level too. But Wolves for 6 months, he's available. It's not crazy. I think this wouldn't be the worst move.
All right, my realistic one then is going to be Dele Alli to PSG.
Okay.
Good one.
I think this is almost exactly the sort of move that PSG need, Dele Alli needs, and Tottenham would maybe be willing to sanction. I think it would be on loan, first and foremost. I don't see him moving on a permanent to PSG this January. It might be on loan with an option to buy, set fairly high, but I would be very surprised to see Tottenham actively weaken their squad in such a busy sort of season in the long term. But on loan, I think Dele is going to need to get out if he wants to get into this England Euros setup. And he's going to need to do that very quickly because arguably England's strongest position at the moment, other than maybe fullback, is kind of in that 10 slot. James Maddison, Jack Grealish battling out in there. How does Dele usurp either of them? He has to absolutely fly at PSG because he's 24 now. His best football of his career came under Maurizio Pochettino, probably 16-17 season, something like that. 18 goals, 7 assists, 4.5 shots and key passes per 90. That's dropped off a cliff really over the last few campaigns, and it's dropped off a cliff even more so this season because he just can't get a game, can he? It's been a terrible season for Dele Alli. 1 start in the league, 3 substitute appearances, 75 minutes of action. Just nowhere near good enough really. In the Europa League he's had 2 starts, 2 substitute appearances, he's contributed to 2 goals, but against some pretty torrid opposition, has to be said. And of course he was hauled off, wasn't he, in the League Cup against Stoke after that back heel. I feel like it's a real juncture in Dele's career, this window and the summer window, because if he stays at Tottenham under Jose, I think he probably is going to see a huge stalling of his career, and then he'll get to sort of 26, 27, and less clubs will be interested. If now he moves at 24 to a club like PSG, who you might say are kind of in the need for a bit of creativity. I think behind Kylian Mbappe and Moise Kean, the top scorer in the side is Neymar on 3 goals. And then he's obviously out long term, so behind him it's like 2s and 3s as well. So they do need a little bit of creativity, and I can see Dele Alli providing some, to be totally honest with you. I think he would do really well in Ligue 1 and would be a fantastic option in the Champions League too. So yeah, for me, I think this makes sense for all parties. Maybe not quite so much Tottenham Hotspur, and definitely makes more sense than Christian Eriksen if you're PSG. Just because he's younger, if you can get that option to buy, he might well find some of that form in a slightly easier league. Yeah, I don't know what you guys think about this, but do you think it would be a positive move for Dele?
Yeah, I think he's kind of got to take it, because I can't really see where else he goes, to be honest. There's not that many other clubs that seem to be linked with him. I can't really see him going to another Premier League club, especially with Spurs in the hunt for top 4 and maybe an real outside bet of the title as well. I don't think they're going to want to strengthen a rival. And can I see him going to a West Ham or an Everton or a club of that sort of stature? Probably not. So I think he's got to take it. What sort of confuses me is that Spurs are now linked with Marcel Sabitzer, who is kind of like a Dele Alli sort of replacement. I mean, he's played more centrally recently, but he used to be a winger, now can play as a number 10, can play in midfield as well. And I'm kind of like, why are you getting rid of Dele Alli if you're just going to go and sign Sabitzer, who might well be a better player? But in January, do you really need to do that when, you're probably the long-term thing you need to do is maybe strengthen at centre-back in terms of an Alderweireld replacement or something? So I find that slightly baffling. I think Dele Alli's basically been a victim of Tanguy Ndombele becoming the player that we all thought he was going to be. When he signed from Lyon, he's been absolutely superb this season and probably doesn't get enough credit. So, yeah, fair play to Ndombele, but Dele Alli, yeah, I'm with you. He needs this move.
Yeah, Pat, if you were Dele Alli, would you be going to PSG, or would you be looking for a club that you're going to guarantee more minutes than PSG potentially?
I think he'll be a starter at PSG if he goes. I think PSG would be a great move for Dele Alli. If I had that opportunity, I'd definitely jump at it. I also think that, in a dream world, an interesting home for him could be, Bayern Munich. I could imagine him playing that Muller role. I don't actually think he's dissimilar in lots of ways to Thomas Muller. But I think that's probably off the cards. I think it would cost too much. But yeah, I think at the moment he's sitting on the bench for a side which has the 4th best squad in the league, but probably won't finish in the top 4. Why not go to PSG, play under a great manager who already appreciates you, play with amazing teammates for at least the time being, and play Champions League football every year and get some trophies, which, are also not necessarily on offer at White Hart Lane.
Yeah, I would love this move to happen. Do you guys at home see Dele joining PSG? Let us know in the comments below. Right, let's move on to our sort of dream moves. A move we would love to see. Might not well happen, but you never know. Dukes, what are you going for?
Mine's a bit niche, actually. It's not sort of one of fantasy. I can actually see it sort of happening. Mine's Dominico Berardi to Atalanta.
Oh, now, wow. That is super niche, bro.
It is super niche, but I knew you guys were going to go. Well, I knew Joe, I saw yours earlier, was going to be a bit more sort of mainstream as it was. And I really like Dominico Berardi. I think he's probably been the most underrated player in Serie A for at least the last 4 or 5 years. He's been at Sassuolo his entire career. He's coming up to 300 appearances for the club. He was bought by Juve in a sort of co-ownership deal for 4.5 million euros in 2013, but then immediately loaned back to Sassuolo, from where he got 15 goals and 10 assists the following year, and then Sassuolo bought him permanently. So he's never had a shot at the big time. He's still just 26 though, and he is a frighteningly good right winger really, and fits that Sassuolo system perfectly alongside Caputo up front. Then they got Jeremy Boga on the left hand side. Berardi is like so good at coming in on his onto his left foot, aiming balls into those target men, or curling it in himself as well. He's currently on 7 goals and 4 assists in 15 appearances this year. I think he got over 20 last year for Sassuolo as well. This year he tops Serie A for passes into the penalty area and ranks in the top 5, get this, for through balls, shot creating actions, key passes, shots on target and nutmegs. And you know, there's just those players that come along every now and again who you're just like, you've kind of outgrown your side and you need another opportunity. And I was reading about this last year because I've been touting him for a while. I even put him as a very cheap option for Man United if they were going to go down that route last summer, which I don't think they're ever going to do. But I was trying to find out why clubs haven't gone for Berardi, and apparently it's because he used to be a massive hothead when he first broke through and got sent off regularly. I think he's got one of the highest red card records in Serie A history. But for the last couple of years, he seems to have calmed down. He seems to have mellowed. And I think he'd be a great addition at Atalanta. Obviously, Papu Gomez looks like he's leaving. Josip Ilicic is, 32, I think? And will need replacing it at some stage. And Berardi at Atalanta seems like a good fit. And he's only valued at just under £30 million. And if he doesn't go to Atalanta, you know, maybe he'll just stay on at Sassuolo and become an absolute legend, you know, a sort of Totti-esque figure for them. But I want to see him get a chance in the Champions League and prove just how good he is. So, yeah, Berardi to Atalanta.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because Atalanta, I think they're definitely going to need forward replacements. I mean, Gasperini was desperate to keep Diallo on his books before he left for Manchester United, even though he wasn't playing many minutes. And I'm presuming that's because of, like you said, the Papu Gomez situation. He's obviously fallen out terribly with the club and is definitely going to leave this January. Where do you think he's going to go? Do you think he's going to end up like coming to a Premier League side, staying in Italy and just moving around, or?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, there's links with him and Juventus. There's links with him and Inter Milan. I mean, he very much fits the Conte model of, you know, unless you've got less than 60 years to live, you know, Conte won't sign you. And Papu Gomez certainly fits in that that category. Yeah, I feel like he'd be a good option for Inter Milan. He also came from Ukraine, so I'm not suggesting he's going to go to Ukraine, but he's no stranger to doing slightly sort of strange career moves. Maybe he'll go back to Argentina. Boca Juniors, you know, I'm wearing their shirt right now. Maybe you go to Boca Juniors. I don't know, but we'll see with Papu Gomez. But it's a bit of a shame, really, for such a loyal player and someone who's performed so well for Atalanta and be so sort of key to their growth over the last few years to fall out like this. It's a bit of a damp squib.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dominico Berardi is a really good shout. I think that's a very interesting shout. Much more interesting than the shout I've got. But Pat, I've just seen yours written down, and we were discussing Arsenal's number 10 situation earlier. Is this man that you're about to suggest the answer?
Well, Rodrigo De Paul, who is my player from Udinese, has been linked to Arsenal in the past, and Spurs, and obviously really heavily Leeds in the summer. But I was just thinking about this now, and I think actually he'd be a really interesting fit for Southampton. I have been looking at attacking midfielders a lot because of all this noise around Arsenal looking for one. And I think there are lots of interesting guys out there. You know, there's Romain Fèvre at Brest. There's Noni Madueke in the Eredivisie. Like, these are interesting players. But when I watch Southampton, I'm absolutely staggered by the lack of talent in that team. Like, there's so little talent in that team. Like, they genuinely have an appalling squad. Like, I think the squad is probably like 13th or 14th.
They've got some good players.
Do you not think they've got?
Good individuals.
I think some of their starting lineup's pretty good.
I think a couple of them are. I think Ings is good. I think Adams is good. I think Vestergaard's good. And I think that's it. Like, their fullbacks are okay.
Ward-Prowse is all right.
Ward-Prowse has definitely got a purpose.
Ward-Prowse is but he's a lower half of the table player. Like, he's like a 13th place team player.
I think Walker-Peters could be very good.
Yeah, maybe, but he's still quite raw, and it's only really this season that he started to show that, which kind of makes me think that it's Hasenhüttl, in the same way that Ward-Prowse has only ever been good for about a year of his career, and it's the last year under Hasenhüttl, and even then, he's not as good as everyone thinks he is. But you know, I saw them against Arsenal, you know, when they were a man up, and they looked like they didn't really know how to hurt a team when they weren't playing in transition. And I think what would really help them is having a creative presence. And I think Rodrigo De Paul would be a really interesting player. This season he's only got 4 goal involvements in 15 games, but I think XG says he should have 7 or 8. He had 13 goal involvements in the league last season. He had 18 the season before. This is playing for Udinese. You know, this is a guy who is involved in, so either taking or creating, 5 shots a game, and has consistently been over the last 3 years in a team which has finished in the bottom half of the table in all those seasons, and which averages about 12 shots a game as a whole. He's still putting up the best shot creating action numbers in Serie A, which is really, really impressive. I mean, I think he's covered more ground with the ball at his feet than any player in Serie A so far this season.
That's mad, isn't it?
Since 2018, only Papu Gomez and Luis Alberto have created more chances than he has in Serie A. Again, playing for much, much better attacking sides. And he's a great dribbler. Like, he's also really improved his defensive work rate. I mean, he's always pressed a lot. I think he's been over 20 pressures in each of the last 3 seasons. But around 3 tackles and interceptions a game as he's moved into a more central role from out on the wing suggests that actually, I think, as one of those advanced attacking midfielders in Hasenhüttl's system, he would do enough defensive work. So I think that combination of vision and work rate would really suit a team like that and give them a little bit of star power, which is what that kind of side is missing. He'd obviously be great for Leeds, but Leeds don't have a problem creating chances. If I were Leeds, that is not necessarily where I'd be looking to upgrade. I think they're absolutely fine for chance creation. And their system creates chances in itself. But when I look at Southampton, like, a lot of the reason that they press so high, I mean, it's good that they press so high, but a large part of it is that they don't have a way of creating chances with the ball. They have to create chances by winning and attacking, winning the possession and attacking before the team gets into its defensive structure. So I'd like to see them have a different way of picking through sides. And Rodrigo De Paul, he's 26, so he's a little bit older than you'd like, but he's... I think that the kind of £40 million price tag which was mooted, I actually don't think that's realistic. I think that you could probably get him for substantially less. And he's just going to want to go to a bigger side and prove himself. And he's got international pedigree. I think he's got 2021 caps for Argentina. Like, I just think it would be really exciting to see him in the Premier League. And yes, he'd be good at Arsenal. Yes, he'd be good at Leeds. Yes, he'd be good at Spurs. But where he'd be a real difference maker, I think, is at a club like Southampton.
That's a really good shout. I like that shout a lot, and I feel almost ashamed with my shout after after Dominico Berardi and Rodrigo De Paul. Like, I feel almost ashamed to say I would love to see David Alaba at Manchester United.
Fair enough.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I do think, like, look, obviously I'm about to get battered in the comments for saying that, but I do think he solves a multitude of issues for Manchester United. Probably our 3 biggest problem areas: left back, centre back, defensive midfield, going backwards anyway in terms of problem areas. I think David Alaba kind of fills all of those biggest problem positions. He would be an almost ideal partner, I think, for Harry Maguire due to his athleticism, his ball progression numbers. United really struggled to build from the back. We've seen that so many times. An inability when De Gea passes to the centre-back for the centre-backs to find the right man, particularly our defensive midfielders, Fred and McTominay, which are the kind of Solskjaer's go-to guys. Their ball progression numbers are pretty poor. David Alaba's are the best in the Bundesliga. So I would love to see that move happen. I don't think it's going to, because I think he's going to go to Real Madrid. That's his dream location. Fair play. They're going to offer him a great deal. I think it's something like £36 million across the course of 4 seasons. And both parties are getting unreal value there. I think to get 4 years of David Alaba for £30+ million is absolutely amazing business. Even at £40 million across 4 years, I think it's amazing business. He's still only 28, I think. So to play to 32 is not an unrealistic claim. Multiple title winner, still huge defensive output, even though they are an extremely ball dominant side in the Bundesliga. Bayern Munich, he's so versatile that he would cover multiple areas. Obviously, it's a step. He's not going to join Man United. I'm not an idiot. He's going to go to either Real Madrid, maybe Liverpool as his second choice. But I think this is almost the ideal centre-back option for United to partner Harry Maguire or even Eric Bailly, potentially, who has looked like United's best centre-back this season. So, yeah, I would love to see David Alaba at Manchester United. Dukes, do you think this would be a good move, even though it's totally unrealistic?
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be an incredible move. I mean, if he does go to Real Madrid, which does seem more realistic, as you say, I think Real Madrid have absolutely smashed that. He is the perfect sort of calibre of player to make the move on finally from Sergio Ramos over the next 4 years. And Real Madrid actually have quite a weird squad in that they've got a load of players that are deep into their 30s. Your Benzemas, your Ramoses, your Modric's, even your Cruces, Casemiro's approaching 30 as well. And they've got a lot of young players coming through, but they've got very few players that are sort of in their peak. It's only really sort of Courtois, Carvajal, Varane, Nacho. I'm sure I'm missing some obvious ones as well. So Alaba going in there at a peak 28-year-old, 8 years of experience of playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. I think he just instantly takes Real Madrid up a notch and back into potential Champions League contention if they get their attacking signings right this summer and midfield signings as well. So it's just the perfect start of Real Madrid's sort of continued sort of rebuild, really. And I think it'll take them on further quicker. So great signing for them, but I can't see him going to Man United.
Yeah, me neither. I think I bet his agent's fees are looking pretty chunky as well. Pat, do you think he's going to end up at Madrid? Good signing for them?
Yeah, I think Madrid just seems the obvious home for him. It seems to be the place that he's always been thinking about when he's been renegotiating contracts with Bayern Munich. I find it extremely hard to see him not ending up there. It just seems like there's an Alaba-shaped hole waiting to happen.
Yeah, agreed. Right, let's move on to some quick fire questions then. No messing about. This one was sent in by Natos B2000. It's an interesting one, actually. He says, is Eberechi Eze good enough for England's seniors duty?
Wow.
Dukes?
I'd probably say it's a little bit early for that, just because I think there's players that are ahead of him right now. But have I been impressed with him this season? Yeah, I think he's been absolutely awesome. I think Roy Hodgson really used him quite effectively. I don't think he threw him in at the deep end too early. I think after about 8-9 games, he hadn't had that many appearances, and Crystal Palace fans, one of which is my girlfriend's dad, was sort of like, why have we signed this guy if we're not going to use him? He had so much dynamism, etc. But since he's come in, I think he adds so much more, and you can see that Wilf Zaha really likes playing with them as well. There's so much interchange with them. They almost look kind of competitive with each other, but in a really helpful way. And I think Eze's been awesome. I mean, that goal against Sheffield United the other day was a perfect example of his talents. But for England duty, what is he? I think he's only 21, 22. I think it's maybe a little bit early. I think, Grealish is ahead of him. Left wingers are ahead of him. Sancho, Sterling, Rashford were kind of comfortable there. And if you want to play him as a 10, we've probably got Mount and Grealish who are ahead of him too. So maybe a bit early, but maybe 2022 World Cup, I can see him getting involved in the seniors.
Yeah, I think he's starting to grow into the season. Like he started it a little bit slowly. I'm not sure. I was speaking to James Alcott at the start of the season, who's a big QPR fan, and he said, look, Roy Hodgson cannot play him out wide. He's not going to be played out there to his best ability. He has to be played central where he can actually unlock teams. And I feel like over the last couple of weeks, Roy has started to move him a little bit more centrally and is getting better output out of him. But yeah, I totally agree. I think it's like I said earlier, one of the most competitive positions. Mount, Maddison, Grealish, all ahead of him in the pecking order right now. So I can't see him stepping up to the seniors just yet, and not unless there's an injury problem. But yeah, it may be 2022, maybe 2023 sort of time if Maddison, Mount and Grealish don't progress at the rate they currently are, but the issue is that they're all a sort of similar age to him, bar Grealish, I guess. How old's Maddison? 23? And Eberechi's 22, so it's a difficult one for me. Pat, not quite there yet?
Yeah, I mean, he's not good enough for England seniors, but that's only because, like Doug said, the level of the players ahead of him. Like, I mean, it's not that he's not good enough to be an international player, but, like, is he good enough to force those guys out? And to be honest, all the guys you've listed there, we haven't even talked about someone like, I don't know, Phil Foden playing attacking midfield.
Yeah, of course.
Like in 2 or 3 years' time, like Foden or Emile Smith-Rowe or somebody, or Noni Madueke might have really taken a step forward, and we're like, well, there's no home for Eze. So I think he's one of those players who might slip through the cracks purely because England just have an unbelievable wealth of talent in his preferred positions.
Yeah, okay. The next one was sent in by Josh1127_. He says, should Borussia Dortmund look at Ralf Hasenhüttl as their next manager? Diggs?
Yes, absolutely. I think he should be under consideration. I think they've looked at him before, I remember reading. I think just before he signed his new contract, maybe in January of 2020, I think they were looking at him. Then I think, he sort of fits their sort of ethos, as it were, as a club. Obviously has, loads of experience in Germany, having managed RB Leipzig, doing great things at Southampton. I don't quite agree with Pat about their level of talent, but I think they're a very good side, and have surprised on in the biggest games as well this year as well. They got that draw against Chelsea. They obviously beat Liverpool. They ran Man United very close. And I think Hasenhüttl's going big places, and Dortmund would be a great step for him.
Yeah, agreed. What do you think, dude? Pat?
The thing about Hasenhüttl is that I don't think he's had much success when playing outside his 4-2-2-2. And my concern would be, if he went to Dortmund, that their talent doesn't really fit that. I think their central midfield talent is not particularly good. Like, I really like Bellingham, but he's extremely young. Witsel is fine, but slowing down. Delaney is not great. De Hood has not kicked on. So I do think it would require a pretty significant recalibration of the squad if he was going to play that system there. But on the other hand, they've got so much talent that he would maybe be able to do something else, which he couldn't do at Southampton because of the limits of the squad. And at Leipzig, the 4-2-2-2 worked quite well. So I think they should definitely consider him. He has to be on the list for any big team considering changing manager this year. He has to be.
Who would you go for then, Pat? In an ideal world, if not Hasenhüttl, if you were Borussia Dortmund, who would you be targeting as first choice?
Probably. I don't think they'll get Nagelsmann, but Nagelsmann and Rose should be there. Like, given that they've had Tuchel before, it should be Nagelsmann, Rose, and Hasenhüttl. Those should be the three guys.
Yeah, I think Nagelsmann would be insane, wouldn't it? It'd be unreal, but I just don't see him leaving. I feel like RB Leipzig to Dortmund is almost a plateau in his career now.
Yeah,
exactly. It feels like he's kind of ready just to explode and go to a super club. Let's do one more quick fire before we do personals then. Chris United says, are Leicester City now in the Big Six? I saw a lot of people asking this on these Sunday Vibes questions, and I think the firm answer from me is no. Dukes, what do you think?
I think the Big Six is kind of a bit of a dead concept at the moment, to be honest. I mean, Arsenal don't look like they're going to be a consistent top six. They're not going to finish in the top six this year necessarily. I think they do very well to finish in the top six. I've never really bought into the top six as much as other people have, although I think 5 of them will finish in the top 6 this year, and Leicester will probably be the other one. I think I don't know, I put it on Twitter the other day. I've got a thing about Leicester that I feel like when I watch them, I just want them to be better. I want them to do more. I think they've got better talent than their performances suggest, and yes, they're hard to beat, but I feel like Rodgers
harsh, man. That is so harsh.
I feel like Rodgers gets so much credit as like sort of all this possession style of football. I actually think they're very solid and pretty pragmatic. And yes, they've been without Ndidi at times this season. Yes, Maddison's only just come back to form, but I just want more from Leicester.
But do you not think he is getting, I feel like Rodgers is getting almost the absolute limit out of that bunch of players. Like, at times he's been stuck with a back four of James Justin, Amati, Evans. I feel like it's been so depleted by injuries to either Soyuncu or Pereira or Ndidi or Maddison that he's had to shuffle the pack around an insane amount. I actually really disagree with you on this. I like watching Leicester a lot, and I think that Rodgers is smashing it there.
I think I've got to say, I think they've done very well with their injuries. I mean, they haven't even had Pereira all season. As you say, Justin's played in about 3 or 4 different positions at the back, and he's done very well. But I just feel like Leicester in the big games against your Man Cities, against Arsenal earlier this year, less so of a big game. But in those massive clashes, he sets them up very well. They're a lethal counter-attacking force. They're very solid defensively. Fair play to them. But it's the games against Newcastle that I watched the other day. It's the games against West Brom earlier this season. I just want them to have more control and exert more authority. But maybe I'm just being ultra harsh. I don't know. But I feel like Leicester City, if they want to go that step further, they're going to have to be more dominant, is what I think I'm supposedly saying.
Yeah, I think Leicester City are more, at the moment, more of a top 6 side than maybe an Arsenal. But I still think they're not a contender for the Big Six, just based on, history, based on financial power. And at the end of the day, this is kind of how I always end up looking at it, is if you're a player and Arsenal and Leicester both came to you with the same contract offer, who would you join? I would still join Arsenal.
You're going Arsenal, yeah.
So yeah, for me, I'd say no, but they are definitely part of the top 6 at the moment. Pat, would you agree?
Yeah, I'd say they've got one of the best 6 squads in the Premier League. I think they probably have the 6th best squad in the league. The only teams I can think that are potentially ahead of them are United, Spurs, Chelsea, Liverpool and City. But I completely agree with you. The Big Six is not about that. The Big Six is about pulling power, really. And if Man United finished 8th this season, which they're not going to, but if they did, they could still go out and compete for the biggest players in the world. Arsenal had a god-awful season last year, but if they'd had the money, they could have bought both Partey and Aouar in the summer. That to finish outside of the Champions League places and still be able to do that is not a power that Leicester have yet. And actually, I think that both of you kind of had a point when you were talking about the team as a whole and Rodgers. I think Rodgers has done a great job this season dealing with their absences. I also, though, think that they are quite boring. I think that Rodgers' preference is to play quite boring football. I think he's got this reputation as an attacking manager, whereas what he really is a possession manager. And I think that often Leicester's ideal game is quite a dull game where they get a slightly dodgy penalty because Vardy is literally the Messi of winning penalties, which is no criticism. But even the City game earlier this year, when everyone was like, "Wow, what a brilliant performance! What an amazing result!" It's it wasn't particularly for a game that they won 5-2. It wasn't particularly entertaining. It was they won a bunch of penalties. That's fine. That's a skill. I'm not saying they don't deserve the win. I'm just saying that when they win games like that, people afterwards tend to assume that they've been entertaining in the process. And actually, I think that there have been significant periods under Rodgers, and actually I've heard a lot of Leicester fans say this, where they've been quite boring. And so I don't know. I think the truth lies somewhere between those things. But the Big Six to me is always about financial clout. I agree that it's kind of a disappearing concept, but when it comes to the difference between Leicester and the bigger sides, it definitely still exists. Whereas actually teams like Everton, I'd say arguably have more financial clout than Leicester. Yeah.
All right, then. Let's do one final personal question. Then this is from Connor Ramos 3. And he says, what was your favourite show growing up? I presume he means TV show, Dukes.
I had quite a few, actually. I loved Recess with Gretchen Wiener and TJ. I thought that was fun. Do you remember Arthur, the cartoon Arthur?
Yeah.
I was big into that. He was a pretty, exactly. Banging theme tune as well. He was a cool guy. And then I was obsessed with the movie Tarzan. I loved Tarzan.
Oh my god.
He was just a real free spirit, and I really liked it. Those would be my picks.
I'll go for Tracy Beaker. I used to watch endless episodes of Tracy Beaker. I don't know why. Don't ask me. But I was absolutely obsessed with that as a kid. That and Ed, and Eddie. What about you, Pat?
I loved Power Rangers when I was really little, man. That was
really.
That was extremely my shit.
What's your favourite one?
The Orig. It's thanks to Power Ranger. Yeah, later on it was always just people transforming into fucking dinosaurs and stuff.
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, it was just a bunch of people doing really bad martial arts in outfits, which I was kind of on board with. And But I don't know, like, it's obviously thanks to Power Rangers that I'm a black belt in Kung Fu today. That's how I learnt it. But
yeah,
I don't know, like a lot of the shows that I was into when I was young, like I now don't. I think they're terrible looking back on them. You know, like I really like
so bad, mate, so bad.
And even shows that I think people still love, I'm just like, wow, I really loved this when I was a kid, and I don't connect with it anymore. Like I don't connect with Friends, I don't connect with The Simpsons anymore. Like I just don't. I loved them when
Tarzan's still banging.
I loved them when I was a kid. What about Fresh Prince as well? I remember when they used to have reruns of the Fresh Prince on BBC Two. I used to love that.
I've never watched an episode of that.
Really?
I
was a bit young for that.
You're not missing that much, except when I was a kid, I was like, there were women in that show that I was like, they are so hot. Like it was formative. It was like Baywatch. I really liked when I was a kid as well. That's when I was
like
one.
I'd say when I was like early teens, I was obsessed with the show Spooks. Did you ever watch Spooks?
Yeah.
The BBC show?
Yeah.
That was a serious show, mate, when I was growing up in like teenage years. Oh my, that's still one of the like up there shows I think I've ever watched.
It was shocking. Like there were like surprise deaths and stuff in Spooks, and you were like, "Oh my god, yeah, I remember that."
They can't kill him off. All right then, that'll do for today's episode of Sunday Vibes. Remember, as we said at the start, click the link in the description below to go and check out Budweiser's Kings of the Premier League. Pato podcast this week. It was me and you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. We were talking about basically which teams, managers and players have enhanced their reputations or damaged their reputations over the course of the winter fixtures, because it was a pretty eventful Christmas period.
Yeah, exactly. Dukes, anything to plug?
Definitely go check out the podcast. I actually, for the first time in a while, listened to it on a run yesterday and actually really enjoyed it. So well done, guys. That was really good.
Cheers,
Go and check out the Football Pyramid, which dropped on Eurofootball Daily yesterday. It was supposed to be between Pat and Hamill in their quarter-final, but that'll be next week. So instead, it was John Babb and Dave Jackson, the deadly duo of years gone by. So go check them out and show it some love.
Yeah, thanks very much for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.